Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name is Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors with websites and local SEO. I help new chiropractors get started. I help stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today, we're going to talk about content. We're going to talk about why content isn't king, and we're going to talk about why transformational content is the best content. Now, before I get into that, I do want to remind you, if you want a better chiropractic website, check out rocketchiro.com. Or if you would like to show up better in local search, I can help you with that as well. You can reach out to me at rocketchiro.com. If you'd like me just to look at your current website and SEO, give you my 2 cents, give you some advice and recommendations, you can do that. I'll do it for absolutely free. Send you a video that's me looking over your stuff and giving you recommendations. You can request an SEO and website review at rocketchiro.com. And if you are wanting to go beyond the podcast, you're just getting started in chiropractic practice, or maybe you've been out for a little while and you're feeling stuck, check out my Next Step program. It's a great way to get started and get unstuck. All right, so there's a little bit of a myth that's been going around for a long time, and you'll hear people say content is king. I'm telling you that that is a very, very incomplete statement. And the problem with that statement is that if you assume that content is king and just leave it at that, you start creating content arbitrarily. You start just adding stuff to social because you're supposed to add stuff to social. You start paying companies to manage your social media, and they're posting recipes and quotes from Einstein or something like that. You're paying someone to add blogs to your website when there's no sort of rhyme or reason to it. That is the type of thing that you do when you just assume that content is king. Content is king. I need content. Content is good. The reason that that is not correct is because when you do content without intention, you're assuming that content is doing something that it may or may not ever do. The truth is that specific content is king. And what we need to do when we're creating content, whether it's for social media or for SEO or for whatever purpose, even print content that you're going to hand out at a health fair or something like that, you need to start with the question, what do I want this content to do? And then create content around the answer to that question. You want your content to do something. Intentional content is king. So when you're doing content on social media, are you trying to get follows? Are you trying to get new patients? Are you trying to get likes? Are you trying to get attention? Or what are you trying to do? And then creating content around that purpose. If you're doing SEO, what are you trying to rank for? What question are you trying to answer? Like, what are you trying to improve? You're not just trying to arbitrarily get more traffic on your website. Like, that's not the intention, or at least it isn't for most chiropractors. You're trying to do something specific, or you want to rank well for something specific. That requires specific content and specific action. So where did this all come from? And I'm going to talk about the different types of content, but the reason I want to land on transformational content and why it's so important is because I'm in a Instagram little group, and it is a group that is with Shaq Smith. I've had him on the podcast a couple times. We've talked about Instagram advertising. It's not my wheelhouse. Like, I don't particularly like social media advertising. I understand enough about it to get me in trouble, but I don't enjoy doing it. So I don't actually do it as a service. But in that group, I get to hear different things that people are doing and what's working. And I think it's a really interesting thing. And one of the comments that Shaq made recently was he said that make sure you're posting transformational content. And one of the docs in the group was like, what do you mean? And that's sort of where this podcast came from, because I thought, oh, that actually is an interesting podcast topic, because I don't think that I've covered that topic specifically, although I've mentioned it in different podcasts. Now, I'm going to categorize content in 4 different categories, and there might be more, but these are just sort of the 4 that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about number 1, educational and informative content. This is the chiropractor's wheelhouse. We love educational content, like patient education. We love it. It's our thing. Then there's entertaining content, there's intriguing content, and lastly, we're going to land on what I think is the most valuable content, which is transformational content. So that's going to be the structure of the types of content we're going to talk about. I'm just going to touch on the first 3, and then we'll land on transformational content. So educational, informative, let's start there. This is the chiropractor's wheelhouse. We love educational content. This is just what a lot of chiropractors do. It's actually what I do a lot of. When you listen to my podcast, watch my podcast, if you see my podcast clips on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, it is educational. I'm not particularly trying to be entertaining. I'm not particularly trying to be intriguing. And most of the time, the content I post is not transformational, which is probably a mistake on my part. Educational content has its value from the standpoint of when someone consumes educational content, they tend to be better patients, or in my case, they tend to be better clients. People that come to me through my podcast are always better than people that just find me randomly on, a Google search or AI or whatever search that they were using. This is going to be true for chiropractors as well. If someone happens to consume your educational content, whether it's blogs or social media or whatever, they're going to show up to you a much better patient, much more qualified patient. Just the quality is going to be much higher than some rando that finds you through their insurance list or something like that. The problem with educational content is it's not particularly interesting. It doesn't get shared a lot. It doesn't get a lot of interaction on social. People don't go to social media to get informational content. And so it doesn't really move the needle in any sort of viral way that you would want it to. So if you really, really want new patients and you're posting a bunch of educational content, you're not going to be introduced to a lot of new people with educational content because people don't share educational content. They don't like it. They don't comment on it. It just sort of sits. It has value, but it only has value for people who are specifically looking for it already. So that's sort of the downside of it. Next, let's talk about entertainment. Entertaining content, and there's a broad range of entertaining content. You could do entertaining content within the context of being a chiropractor. Chiropractors do these online trends and some stuff that has nothing to do with chiropractic at all, and lip syncing stuff, and some of it's silly and some of it's sort of a hybrid of educational entertaining. But entertaining content seems to do better on social media just simply because most people are on social media to be entertained. They're not on there to be educated. They're not on there necessarily looking for advice. They most of the time are on there to be entertained primarily. And so that sort of content does well online just from the standpoint of it meshes well with social media. The problem with entertaining content is entertaining content is generally a long way away from what you actually want a person to do as a chiropractor. And it also isn't necessarily building authority and building trust and getting a depth of relationship that you would be hoping for. It's sort of like the opposite of educational. If educational takes a long time and it's not shared, and when people consume it, they tend to be really, really good patients. The opposite would be true about entertaining, where it's like, okay, people are more likely to share it. People are more likely to comment. People are more likely to see it. But the depth of quality you're going to get from a person, it's like, oh, I watched a bunch of your silly videos and now I want to be your patient. It's like that depth of quality is not going to be the same as entertaining. So there's sort of the yin and yang of each other. Now, I'm not telling you not to post entertaining stuff. I think a lot of stuff that chiropractors post is super cringy and it kind of makes me uncomfortable watching it. But I post memes all the time. My memes have nothing to do with the Rocket Chiro websites. It have nothing to do with my podcast. They have nothing to do with my local SEO service or Next Step or none of that. And the only reason I post those memes is because chiropractors are more likely to comment on them or share them or like them. They're just more likely to get reach that I'm not going to get with my podcast clips, or I'm not going to get with some sort of educational content. And so that's why I do it. Now, when someone sees a funny meme and it's like, oh, that's a funny Gonstead meme, they're a really, really long way away from like, I'm going to trust Jerry to do my website and do my local SEO. They're a long way away. But my hope is that if you like the memes and you're a chiropractor, now you can follow me and you can start picking up some nuggets and maybe we'll head in that direction. But I will admit, there's a big gap between somebody who thinks my memes are funny and someone who trusts me to do their local SEO and do their website. And that's the same with you as a chiropractor. You have to understand is that if you're just posting amusing stuff, there's a big gap between I posted amusing content and this person trusts me with their health. Doesn't mean they won't bridge that gap. It just means it is a big gap, and it is the downside of entertaining content if that's all you're doing. Next, let's talk about intriguing content. Now, intriguing content is interesting, which is, I guess, ironic, right? Intriguing content is content that grabs you and sort of pulls you in. It's different than entertaining because intriguing pulls you in and it has like a longer shelf life. When someone is intrigued by something, they watch it and it's almost like a train wreck. It's like, I can't look away. Like it's interesting. And I think that the chiropractic adjustment videos that are really popular, a lot of that falls into the category of intriguing. I know there's an entertaining and education element to some of it, but some of it's just intriguing, especially the high velocity stuff where or just weird things that chiropractors might do. People can be captivated by that. And I'll give you an example of intriguing content that's not a chiropractic example, but it helps kind of drive this point home. There's a guy that I watch, I forget his name even, but he has a recovery business. I think it's out in Utah. Maybe it's Colorado, Utah. It's somewhere in that area. And the recovery business is he goes out and like when people get stuck in a ditch and people get stuck off the side of the mountain or people get stuck in the sand, like his business is he goes out and he pulls people out and, charges them money for that. And that's this guy didn't want to become a YouTube star. He doesn't come across like someone who wants to become a YouTube star, but he started filming his recoveries. And I know there are people out there like me that I don't go off-roading. I live in the Midwest where the land is flat and corn is abundant. And so people don't really generally get stuck and have a need for a recovery business. So I'm not really someone that's ever going to pay for his service, but I have watched quite a few of his videos because it's intriguing. It's interesting the situations they get in. It's interesting to see how they problem solve these different scenarios. And because of that, he's gotten to the point where he's generating revenue on YouTube purely out of intrigue more than anything else. Are people interested in the recovery business? No. Is there some educational element to it, an entertaining element to it? Yes, but it's not really why people watch. I think they watch because of the intrigue. And I think this is also true for chiropractors that have big followings on YouTube. Like, I don't think that, if someone has 100,000, 200,000 or 1 million followers on YouTube and they're a chiropractor, people aren't that interested in chiropractic, but they are intrigued with something that's going on with that particular chiropractor. And that can draw people in and give you the opportunity to get patients out of it. And I think that intrigue is definitely a lot more valuable. There's a lot more depth to it. And I think the potential of getting patients out of intrigue is higher than getting patients out of entertainment. I would put entertainment the furthest down on this list in terms of the furthest away from getting an actual new patient and improving your business. So last thing we're going to talk about is transformational content. And some of you may not even know what transformational content is, but transformational content basically can be summarized in, I was this way and now I'm that way. This could be a video, it could be audio, it could be a picture, it could be any number of things. It could be in print, but I was this way, now I'm that way. Now, me being a review guy and a local SEO guy, the easiest way for me to explain this is through reviews. And if you're a chiropractor who gets a review that's a 5-star review and people say, doctor was nice, the staff was nice, the doctor listened, the place was clean, a good experience. Great. I love 5-star reviews. I'll take them however I can get them. But if someone says, I've been to 5 other chiropractors, no one's been able to help me, and Dr. Jerry helped me. If someone says that they have been in pain for 20 years, they had no hope, they've tried everything, they've done all kinds of surgeries, and Dr. Jerry was able to help. That's a transformational review. And this can be in video. Like I said, it could be a review that's in print. There's a lot of ways to do that. But what you're doing is you're demonstrating to people that are seeing this, that this person creates change. This is results-driven marketing. It's transformational. Now, what does that look like in social media? It could be a patient testimonial. There was a video that in the Instagram group that I was in that Shaq shared when we were talking about this. He shared a video where a guy just was doing a video of himself, like greeting the doctor. And it was just kind of a, hey man, when I came in here, I was like crawling and I'm just so thankful for you and whatever. That's transformational content. Now, the difficult thing about transformational content is you are working with other people. And so you have to be good at what you do. You have to actually be generating results, unless you're going to fake it, which I don't recommend. So you have to generate good results. You have to wait for those results, and you have to get people that are willing to participate in the process. Someone has to leave the review. Someone has to do the video with you. Someone has to be willing to share some of their transformation. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So by its very nature, it's a little bit more difficult, but that difficulty results in content that moves the needle in a way that no other content does. If you're wanting new patients out of your content, you're wanting to build trust, you're wanting to build authority, you're wanting to become the go-to, this is my chiropractor, and I'm even willing to spend more money for this person, transformational content is the way to do it. Now, I can be as guilty as anyone of not posting this. So for me, that might look like posting a before and after on like a heat map where it's like, hey, this is what someone's SEO looked like. They're ranking, it's all red, it looks terrible. And now they're in the top 2, top 3, all the way across the board. They're number 1 all the way across the board for, Memphis chiropractor or whatever the keyword happens to be. That's an example of transformational content that I could post. What you should do is, as you're posting online, is start thinking about what are ways that I can start generating more transformational content. From a review standpoint, maybe just hold off. I mean, if you're doing like the review wave thing where it's like you come in for a first visit and they ask for a review, you come in for a second visit, they ask for a review, you come in for a third visit, they ask for a review, and you're just kind of asking really early, you're not giving that person an opportunity to have a transformation. So you're not going to get a transformational review. So maybe waiting a little bit and giving it a few visits before you ask for that review for the first time, that would be wise, to not get a bunch of reviews that are going to just say, doctor was nice, the staff was nice, the place was clean. I just don't, like I said, 5-star reviews, 5-star review, I'll take it. But the words in those reviews, like if they're going to impact someone's decision-making who's going to become a patient in the future, the doctor's nice and the place is clean, doesn't really move the needle. And in the same vein, those like amusing videos that we post that are even a meme on my part, it's not going to really move the needle. Although something's better than nothing, right? As long as we're, like I said, something's better than nothing, but not everything is the same. So last thing I'll say is that this goes beyond just new patients. Using transformational content or using the idea of transformational content within the context of your practice can also help with patient retention and also help with patient satisfaction. And so chiropractors who do, and I know a lot of you guys are kind of anti doing x-rays for diagnostic purposes and doing x-rays for like before and afters I'm just saying that if you're documenting something that a person can see, and x-rays is one way of doing this, a posture analysis, like an actual picture, is one way of doing this. Range of motion testing, especially if they can see it themselves. These motion tests where it's like bending a certain way, twisting a certain way. There's ways of doing this where if you start documenting where a person is at when they start care, and then as you do progress with them, you can document, this is better, this is better. And if they can see it, that's the most important thing when you're talking about the patient relationship. They can see it. Now, obviously, if they're saying I felt like I'm miserable and now I feel wonderful, that's easy. That's a home run. Like that's super simple. But how much better is it that you can pile some objective stuff on top of it and say, you looked this way before and now you look this way. You were able to do that. You couldn't do this, and now you can do this. That is transformational content within the context of patient management. And that's why those things, whether like I said, x-rays is one of the ways of doing that, but you don't have to do it that way. You could do it other ways, but you have to be intentional about documenting in the beginning ways that we're going to check this stuff in the future because we're going to use this to show this person that we're making progress. And that's a smart way of doing patient management and patient care, because you're validating your care through something that the person can see and experience. And that is also transformational content, but it's in a different vein other than just, we've been talking about new patients and getting people to follow you and stuff like that. This is sort of on the back end. Once somebody becomes a patient, you can take that same idea and use it to your advantage down the road. So those are some thoughts, guys. Like I said, content is not king. Specific content is king, and you want to be intentional about what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and then create content that's going to put you in the best position to get that done. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. If you know a chiropractor that doesn't listen to the podcast and they could benefit from it, please share it with them. If you'd like me to look at your website and SEO, you can do that at rocketchiro.com. If you'd like to leave a review, you can do it at Apple Podcasts. You could also do it on Google. There's a link on rocketchiro.com that goes to our Google account. So if you can leave a review there if you want to. I'm done. I'm out of here. I will talk to you guys on the next episode. See you.